Hi, everybody. I'm really pleased to welcome you to this reading as part of the Distinguished Poetry Series. And this is a reading of the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Award winners, honorable mention and editor's choice. It's a program I always loved because I love the variety of the poems and I love how wonderful they sound when you guys all read your poems. And so it's a very good thing. I do want to say that all of our programs are funded by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, Department of State, by the Passaic County Community College, and by the support of the president of the college, Dr. Stephen Rose. And I also want to say that we are funded in addition by individual donors who give us money or leave us money in their wills. So that has made it possible for us to do these programs and the workshops and readings that we've been doing even through the terrible time of the pandemic. So I'm glad to see you all, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to call your name, then you unmute yourself and read the poem. So we're going to start with the first prize winners, and this year we have a tie for first prize. So our first prize winner is Adele Kenny from Fanwood, New Jersey, and her poem is called One of Us. Go ahead, Adele.
Trying to unmute. Am I unmuted? Yes.
You did.
I'm unmuted. Maria, thank you so much for all of this and for everything that you do for poets and poetry. One of us. His name was Richard, and he was one of us, a neighborhood kid who lived in one of the tired houses on the other side of Route 1, a place where trucks rumbled through our dreams and small planes from Linden Airport flew overhead. Separated from the rest of Rahway by the highway's paved line, safe inside our thin streets and broken sidewalks, we played together at Flanagan's Field. All equally poor, equally the same. We had no idea that people lived differently in other parts of town. In the early 50s, gym wasn't a regular subject. But once a week, we first graders put on our sneakers and went to that huge room overhung with basketball nets and lined with bleachers. There, our teachers marched us in tight formation, in staggered ranks, in moving circles. One week, she told the girls to choose partners for folk dancing. Of course, I chose Richard. He was my friend. And what fun it was to spin around the gym in our own versions of the tarantella, the polka, the Irish jig. That afternoon on the playground, I found Richard hunched by a row of hedges. He was crying, but when I went to him, he shrugged me away and covered his face with his hands. It was then that a group of kids made a circle around me and chanted, "And lover, and lover." Strangely afraid, I ran from the schoolyard and crossed Route 1 by myself, something I was forbidden to do. My parents must have contacted the school because the taunting stopped, but something innocent changed that day. Richard and I stayed friends until high school when his family moved away. I didn't see him again until years later in a local ShopRite. I heard a voice say my name. I turned, and there was Richard. We spoke for a while about who we had become, and then he bowed from the waist and smiled. I curtsied, and there we were, doing a crazy waltz down the produce aisle, past canned goods and candies, past a dozen shoppers who stepped back and watching us slowly began to applaud. Thank you.
Wonderful, Adele. Thank you so much.
Thank
Beautiful. Our next first prize winner is Marion Paganello from Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and her poem is called A Picture is Worth.
Thank you, Maria. Hello to everybody. It's such an honor to be here. A picture is worth. On the 55th anniversary of our mother's death, my younger sister posted several photos of her from various stages of her abbreviated life. One picture always catches my heart. It was taken on Christmas night, 1964, posed in front of our heavily tinseled and exuberantly decorated tree are my younger brother, age 6, in his gray flannel shorts, white button-down shirt, plaid vest, and matching bow tie, his 2 short socks, nicely shined brown Oxfords, and brown hair, neatly parted and combed, is looking straight at the camera, that signature twinkle in his blue eyes, with a slight smile lifting the corners of his mouth. I, age 9, am standing next to him in my dark green corduroy jumper, unironed white shirt, with my shoulder-length, thick blonde hair, barely contained by a wide white elastic headband. I have on white ankle socks and my shiny black Mary Janes. My left hand is resting on the arm of our mother's wheelchair, and I am looking down towards the left. Our mother, age 37, is seated in her chair, so lovely in her full-length gold brocade special occasion dress with buttons of the same fabric going all the way down the front to the hem, her feet clad in matching gold flats. Her dress is tied at the waist with a sash of the same material. She is very thin, and her chin-length chestnut curls frame her face, accentuating her cheekbones. She too is looking down towards the left. Standing slightly behind her is our older sister, age 14, looking tall and elegant in an outfit borrowed from her mother, a long coral-colored wool skirt, a paisley silk blouse of matching coral and soft blues. Her long brown hair is held neatly by a wide blue ribbon. She is looking directly into the camera, her mouth showing the promise of a smile. Next to her is our baby sister, age 4, in her black velvet jumper and white turtleneck, her straight brown hair in a pixie cut, which frames her wind-chapped cheeks. She gazes right into the camera, her face bursting with a happy secret. Out of view and taking the picture are our father, age 40, with his prized Polaroid camera, and our brooding older brother, age 15, who lounges on the well-worn couch with our black lab. We are a family, connected by blood, heart, tissue, soul, rivalry, alliances, mended feelings, secrets, shared stories, laughter, the love of a well-turned phrase, and ever afterwards, memory. What this picture cannot tell us is that this will be our mother's last Christmas, she dying too young, as would both our father and our older brother in their quickened years to come, leaving us, we 4 siblings, ever connected, cherished by one another, irreplaceable, with so many more than 1,000 words to share between us. Thank you.
That's very beautiful. Thank you very much, Marion. A lovely poem. Our second prize winner is Arthur Russell, and he's from Nutley, New Jersey, and his poem is called Jamie. Please make sure you're muted if you're not reading, okay? Because somebody was clanking around during Marion's reading. So that means you're not muted. So check and make sure you're muted. Okay, so Arthur Russell.
Thank you so much, Maria, and it's great to be here. I love this program just about more than any other one. Jamie. And my brother died in 9/11. He lived in Middletown, New Jersey, like many others who died that day. His wife was Jamie, the daughter of a radiologist named Paul Levy. And Jamie had played the part of Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing when she was in high school in Cedarhurst, one of the 5 towns. And she'd gone to college at Bard and wore white shoes and had white jeans, many pairs, as she was skinny and blonde and smart. And that was her style. And she'd met my brother at his job at Cantor Fitzgerald, where he worked as a bond trader and drove an S500 to the city every day. And on the day he purchased that car, which was midnight blue, with cash from his first big Christmas bonus, he drove it to my house and parked it in the driveway and exulted because he had gotten the very car we talked about when we were teenagers, growing up on Kings Highway in Brooklyn, the greatest production line automobile in the world. And he'd thrown himself on the hood of the car and hugged it. He was on the 105th floor of One World Trade, and his S500 was in a parking lot on Washington and Rector Streets, one that had a peculiar open concept elevator system for the cars, which is where we found it after he was murdered by Mohammed Atta and his gang, whose pictures were displayed on television screens night after night as the stories of their infiltration and their pilot training, even their shaving the hair from their bodies on the morning of the terror, and their boarding of the flights in Maine with box cutters, were told over and over to the American people, whose love of religious freedom and hatred of Muslims sleep like moles in a burrow. And at this time, I was living as a single man in Nutley, New Jersey, originally from Brooklyn, where I'd stayed up all night on August the 8th, 1974, with my best friend in high school, Raymond, who is not my friend anymore because, among other things, he owns a gun shop in Atlanta, to get a copy of the next day's New York Times with the headline that said, "Nixon resigns," when it was thrown from the truck in front of the candy store under the elevated subway stop on Avenue J in East 16th Street. And when the dew of youth evaporated, I became an attorney and clerked for a powerful judge in Hackensack. And he got me a job at a good firm, and I pitched my tent in Nutley, not a Jewish town, unaware that a man does not make himself a Jew, that he's made a Jew by God or other people. So I pitched my tent in Nutley, home to the Italian Catholics who had displaced the Methodists, who displaced the Germans, who displaced the Dutch settlers who had colonized this land on the northern end of the parcel that, quote unquote, was sold to Robert Treat by the Lenni Lenape on July the 11th, 1667, bordered on the north by the Third River, a tributary of the Passaic, flowing from the west. And I had a cute center hall colonial in the arts and crafts style, built in 1919, the year that my father and the father of my brother, who died in 9/11, was born in Malden, Massachusetts, the year the Spanish flu had killed 20 million. And when he died, my brother had not had any children with Jamie. And my father sat on a low bench in his mourning, and he was weakened, and I could see how he clutched his hands between his knees, how he was broken by it. And I wanted to comfort him, and he would not be comforted. And on the third day, paraphrasing Genesis chapter 38, he looked at me and he said, "Gary, you should go and lie with Jamie and make her a baby for your brother. And if you don't, then he will die again." And I refused. I refused my father. I said no. And he reasoned with me and he wept. And I looked at the folds in his face and I said no. And he became angry with me. And I became angry with him. And I left his side and I went to the kitchen and Jamie saw that I was angry. And she asked me what had made me angry. And I refused to tell her. And she said, Gary, you have to tell me. But I looked away. And she said, Gary, look at me. And I looked. And she was wearing black. And she was my sister. And I refused to tell her what my father said. And she was hurt. And I was sorry. I did all I could for Jamie as a brother. And in the months that followed, I knew my way from Nutley to Middletown in my sleep. And it came to pass. In January of 2002, my brother's midnight blue S500 came down that open concept elevator in the parking lot on Washington and Rector Streets, where my brother had parked it on that morning. And I saw it coming down the elevator, and it was covered with a thick coating of ash. And the windshield wipers made fan shapes where the ash was pushed aside. And the ash was the ashes of the Trade Center and those who died in 9/11, and my brother among them. And I remembered the day my brother came to my house to show me his new car and threw himself across the hood of it, exulting. And now look, here was my brother's car, covered in the ashes of the dead. And I kept that car. I kept my brother's car. And Jamie and I were married 3 years later, and we have 2 wonderful boys. But this morning, when I read that the father of a boy at the Sandy Hook Elementary School had killed himself, now 6 years after that rampage, I knew the toxic plume such grief spreads underground, that joy can't reach, had poisoned him, nor has it let me go. And I sat down on the steps and held my hands between my knees. Thank you all.
Thank you, Arthur. That was very moving. Now I have to introduce the next person. I'm crying, so we're in a bad way here. Thank you very much, Arthur. Our third place winner is Charlie W. Bryce, and he's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And his poem is called Something in Us Loves a Good Storm. Charlie?
What a moving poem that was. And it's kind of difficult to follow it because I'm going to change the mood here completely. So I'm just warning everybody, this is going to be kind of light. I want to thank Maria for everything she's done for everybody all these years, and poetry, and the other judges who selected my poem. So this is called Something in Us Loves a Good Storm. And that title is from Harry Dennis's wonderful book, The Windward Shore, A Winter in the Great Lakes. Something in us loves a good storm. We turned onto Thumb Lake Road 25 years ago in a blinding blizzard, a horizontal havoc of snow blowing across our windshield. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up with that northern Michigan blizzard. To calm nerves and create distraction, Judy read Harry Potter, the Philosopher's Stone, aloud to our 16-year-old son, Ariel, and to me. Just as she got to the part where there's an ominous knock on the door during a ferocious storm where Harry has been sequestered by the evil Dursleys, just at that terrifying knock, our van went completely dark. A starless, moonless midnight encased our Honda. Was Voldemort after us as well as Harry and Hagrid? No, our harrowing experience was caused by hitting a snowdrift that completely covered our van. This is it, I thought. We'll be stuck here until they thaw out our frozen corpses in the spring. Envisioned walking for miles in below zero temperatures to find a kind farmer who would let me use his phone to call for help. But then, as if Harry had cast a decidium spell, our conventional non-four-wheel drive gray gasoline-powered chariot carried us through the storm into Boyne City, where we found a restaurant, ordered a hot dinner, and renewed our wish to find a place to live amid this arresting Arctic beauty. When our waitress, a young lady a little older than Ari, asked for our drink orders, Ari ordered a Coke, and Judy said she'd like a virgin Bloody Mary. And when this sweet maiden, festooned in the nascent bloom of femininity, asked me what I wanted, I said I wanted a virgin. Our waitress blushed. Judy frowned, and Ariel turned the color of mortification. Having rescued my family from the frozen fright of northern Michigan, and having done my paternal duty of causing our son to wonder what horrible curse Voldemort had cast that made me become his father, I reclined in my chair, smiled, and enjoyed the storm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charlie. That was wonderful. Our next reader is an honorable mention, the first honorable mention reader, and it's Stanley H. Barkin from Merrick, New York. And his poem is called Hope Chest. Hope Chest. Stanley. No, you have to unmute yourself. Unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. I'm speaking into my phone. Should I just be speaking into the computer?
I don't know, honey. Just we can hear
Okay.
you.
All right. Hope Chest. And thank you, Maria, for all that you do. And my compliments to those prize-winning poems. Truly moving. In the long cedar chests, painted green with stencils of red cherubs and harps and hearts, she stored all of her hopes for a future beyond the tenements, the streets of sweltering summers, children full of phlegm and flu, in the winters of broken radiators, photos and albums of brothers and parents, and a little girl picking blueberries by the lakeside in the mountains of grass and trees, cool and dark, full of mystery and hope. Sheets and napkins and pillowcases, bronze baby shoes and small dresses, birth certificates and ketubah, beaded bags and flapper outfits, fitted with Charlestons and big bands. It hasn't been open for decades. It sits under a toll cabinet, waiting. One day her granddaughter will look inside and find the dreams and hope she lost one day in a white room filled with smells and strangers. Someday she will fly on angel's wings and dance the dance she put away in the green chest of hope and dreams.
Lovely, Stanley. Very good. Thank you very much. Our next reader is honorable mention Howard Berelson, Teaneck, New Jersey.
This meeting is being recorded.
The Club of Old Men.
The Club of Old Men. I'm sorry, I wanted to say that, but a little message came on and interrupted me.
Yeah,
So
okay.
this poem is called The Club of Old Men.
The men's club was a place for husbands and fathers to get away from the demands of family life, from children, from wives, from anything that made demands upon them. It was a place my father often disappeared into when he wasn't at the firehouse playing cards with the other men, or wasn't steering the hook and ladder to a fire, or cooking for the men in the living quarters above the trucks when there were no alarm bells striking their signal to the location or numbers of the apparatus required. He was at home with fires. I would, when I wanted to find him, when my mother wanted to find him, go to the door of the men's club, knock on it, and waited until one of the members would rise from his chair, a lit cigar in his mouth, assisted by his cane, open the door and let me know that my father would be out in a few moments. My father would then get up from a table filled with old men, cigars in their mouths, the smoke rising to the ceiling, their eyes upon me, thankful that it wasn't their son at the door because they would have to go home to their own wives, most likely sit in an overstuffed chair, still smoking their cigar and disappearing behind a newspaper. But perhaps I'm been a bit too harsh, because even the sons of fathers that also needed a club to belong to, away from our homes that were often filled with alarms going off, although we didn't know it then. Some of those sons whose fathers were always found in that club committed suicide. Some of the sons disappeared into a void, never to be found. Divorces came later to the men in the club, and after their divorce, my father still visited the club, and when I went to the door and knocked, my replacement father opened the door and he said to me, "Your father is here. Do you want me to let him know that you're asking for him?" "No," I said, "I just wanted to talk to you." My replacement father, a failed writer in a club of failed men. He was like the Pied Piper, gathering young people around him. Unmarried and childless, he gathered in the promise of youth. In the following years, I often visited him in his city, where he lived with his brother's son, the son of another failed father. Years later, the doorman had said to me, "Oh, the old man, why, he passed away some years ago." He died unknown, an unremarkable life, except for the sons of failed men who remember him. Thank you.
Howard, wonderful. Our next honorable mention is Judith Alexander Bryce from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and her poem is called First Grade. Judy Bryce.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you all for coming and for these wonderful poems. So this is First Grade. I never knew the teachers could be named after apples. And I never knew that a teacher like Mrs. McIntosh could have boobs as big as cantaloupes, boobs that she would show off each day under the see-through blouses she wore, those blouses with little knobs on them that made you want to pluck or pull them and say, "Hey, why do you wear a blouse so thin? One of material the same thickness as threads, where you can see right through to lacy underthings and just about almost feel the frills of your dainty pink bra. Its lining of fancy satin lace. It was so delicate, so different from my mom's thick cotton ones. Her long line posture bras straight away stiff, plain and boring, so uninteresting white. There were a lot of things to learn that year, beside the alphabet and spelling, including the long halls to the girls' room, where the commodes usually overflowed because someone, no one ever really knew who, had used too much toilet paper, and you always got your Mary Janes and toes all wet if you didn't look carefully before you entered. Two, there was already munched chewing gum, so carefully placed in a wad under those tiny desks and stuck just so that if you raised your hand after you'd crossed your legs, raised it while you were trying to learn about something that Mrs. Apple called social studies, though it might as well have been named just plain boredom, you might end up with a hunk of gum on your skirt. And that glove, it just wouldn't come off in the wash when you got home, even after your mother scrubbed her hands raw, chafed them pink, red, bare. But then again, the memories that stuck the most, even with all that I learned about additions and subtractions during my alphabet letters, even the special skills in reading and those boring social studies, the memories that stuck were my new friends, especially those friends I made in my forays away from my home as I learned my way back and forth to school. Stuart would usually come by my house, and then 2 blocks straight up Powell Street, we'd ring Jenny's bell. With bouncing braids, she'd come running out the door, and then we were halfway there. I knew because my mother had measured the miles. From that point, we would watch the sidewalk, jump the cracks. Couldn't afford to break our mother's backs. And of course, we had to avoid the lines. My mother's spine seemed okay, but then again, who could really know? She didn't ever wear see-through blouses. But one day we were told that Jenny wouldn't be able to join us. And the next days, it was the same. Brain cancer were the words we heard, the words that stuck. We didn't see Jenny anymore that year, though every day, without a word or whisper between our lips, we looked towards her house through the beech tree, massive, hefty, branches bulky beside her home. Stuart and I stared hard, saw only darkened limbs, soundless, hanging heavy towards the ground.
Wonderful, Denise. Thank you so much. Our next honorable mention is Teresa Burns from South Orange, New Jersey. Places I never went on vacation. Teresa Burns.
Thank you, Maria. Can everybody hear me? Is the volume
Yep.
okay? Yeah. Places I never went on vacation. Had I married that investment banker, Derek, my friend Nate introduced me to in the late 80s, I might have already been to Turks and Caicos or even Greece. I'd be wearing a lot of winter white and having my nails done regularly and French tips. Instead, I remember sitting across from him at a really great restaurant in New York, the kind of restaurant we were always going to back then on the company credit card. And he told me what he was looking for was a wife. A wife and kids and a dog were his exact words. And for a second, I thought it was an indirect proposal, something we would laugh about one day with our kids and our dog all piled together on our neutral couch. But soon it became clear I was not this wife he was looking for. And just as certainly, I knew this would be our last meal together, with appetizers and dessert and a wine he would carefully select without consulting the price list. We would not be traveling to Greece or Rome, places we had talked about days before. And I would keep wearing what I always wore, t-shirts and boyish tops with a collar, sandals that could not hide my big feet. 10 years later, I married a man who took me to good restaurants. Our favorite, the little cantina off First Avenue, where the smell of cilantro hit you at the front door. We bought a house in an old part of Jersey, a place I checked out with Nate, who lived there for a while with Jenna, his beautiful wife. I recalled their wedding years earlier at her parents' estate, the wait staff and the billiard room. And I thought at the time, man, Nate really stepped in shit. Only they're divorced now, he told me. Jenna got fed up with the writing, wouldn't let him see the kids, ultimately got a restraining order. Tonight, I'm thinking about Nate and Derek and the vacations I never went on, feeling not just thankful for the house we fixed up and the garden, the two girls next door jumping on their trampoline, letting out little happy yelps, but a kind of heart-pounding, sweaty relief. Thank you.
Teresa, wonderful. Beautiful poem. Oh, they're all beautiful poems. I just love them. Not that liking things that are important to you is such a big deal. Anyway, the next honorable mention is Patricia Clark from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Mother on the Floor with Jack LaLanne. Okay, do we have Patricia? Are you there? Yes or no, Patricia? Quick or you lose your turn. Patricia? I don't see her, do you? Okay, well, she must not be there, so I can't. She'll have to chase me down after. The next person is Leah DiStefano from Califon, New Jersey, and is called An Extra Hour. Leah DiStefano.
I'm here.
Good. Hi, Leah.
Hi. Just give me a second. Okay. An extra hour. Lost in a healing sleep, still far away. I swear I feel my mother's hand brush the hair from my forehead, linger, still taking care. She says, honey, don't forget to turn the clocks back today. And I wake to wall clock, cloud clock, disarray. And like a lucky penny at my toes, I was taught to always save. She's left me an extra hour to spend, to play, to buy time for what couldn't get done yesterday. I was a sickly child, more memories of games played in bed than in fresh air with giggling friends, of bicycle playing cards and puzzles, and a child's garden of verses, always in her voice, her hand guiding my fingers, tracing illustrations, tracing words. And so I learned to draw, color inside the lines perfectly, then out, finding my own delineation, my words, my asymmetry. I learned to thrive on what I could do if I set free what I couldn't. Learned how to be helpless and how to be helpful, to take, give, balance delicately, excited by the challenge of spotting joy swimming in most tears. I don't really understand how an hour can be gained or lost or found, like a forgotten sock on the beach or the one that turns up in the laundry as soon as its mate has finally been tossed. But I will collect found hours for decades, subtract those lost in an opposite season, and gain an extra day, maybe words and time enough to make a picture, write a poem. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Our next honorable mention writer is Maria Fama, and she's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and her poem is called Trigger.
Oh, Maria, I'm here.
Okay, I can't see
I'm
you.
here.
Oh, there you
You
are.
hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Smita. It's an honor to be here. This is called Trigger. One day in late 1944, 21-year-old Sadhu Fama, before he was my father, sat up in his hospital bed in Cryle Army Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, as Roy Rogers walked into the ward with his horse Trigger. My soldier father, born in Sicily, private first class in Patton's Third Army, with battle wounds received at Metz on the border of France and Germany, was weary yet hopeful he'd learn to walk again. He knew Roy Rogers from the movies, was thrilled to meet him and his famous horse, Trigger. Trigger walked to each bed, hospital booties on his hooves, letting each man pet him. My father reached for Trigger, who nuzzled him. A spark arose between the movie star horse and the young immigrant warrior, who drew with a quick hand a sketch of Trigger from life, right there with paper and pencil. From this sketch, Sadhu Fama painted in oils a portrait of Trigger on canvas. He hung the painting in my room when I was a little girl. I loved seeing Trigger's kind face. I loved hearing how Daddy met Trigger, petted him, drew his picture. I knew Roy Rogers and his wife Dale Evans from TV. I even had a Dale Evans wristwatch. Yet Trigger held me wrapped. I've kept the painting with me through the years. It is suffused with light, compassion, nobility, reminding me that once my father was an ailing boy, and Trigger, the celebrity, who offered him a healing touch of comfort, of inspiration.
Thank you, Maria. That's lovely. That's a wonderful poem. Our next honorable mention is Robert Filman from Macungie, Pennsylvania, Doo-Wop Dream. Robert Filman.
Yes, thank you. This is Doo-Wop Dream. All those doo-wops have disappeared. Those 1950s Vegas style two-story beach rentals with their neon signs and plastic trees. There are cookie cutter rooms and spiral stairways. There are colorful paint jobs and names to match. The blue marlin, the golden sunset, the white star. On one of those rare occasions when we could manage a day trip to the Jersey Shore, my parents and I would walk the main drag, awed by their nostalgic charm, my mom jotting down telephone numbers, my dad and I wanting to peek at the pools, see the clean, swirling water reflect the midday sun. We never stayed at one, and they didn't stay either, replaced by apartments, condominiums, the same space but none of the pop. Older now, I see how tacky those U and L-shaped motels were, that what they offered was not quite real, a glimpse into another kind of life, one I'd never know. What really would have happened had we squeezed into one of those rooms, my parents on the pullout, me on the love seat. What if we had hung towels on the balcony, sipped coffee from the cups we found in our very own kitchenette, tossed crumbs to gulls that flopped beneath those artificial palms as we let that salty air cure our dreams. Thank you.
Love it. Wonderful. Beautiful poem. Next honorable mention is Maria Jura from Staten Island, New York, and her poem is called Sunday.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Maria, for this and for everything, and congratulations, everyone. You can hear me okay, correct?
Yes.
Sunday. Grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins, friends, relatives from Italy and Argentina crowding our dining room with its glass ceiling and chandelier, the bow bay window that looked out onto 12th Avenue with its emerald squares of lawn, the solid mahogany table with its trunk-like legs and two leaves, blooming with conversation and laughter. My mother's sauce and fresh pasta steaming from the bone china, and the good crystal from the breakfront filled with burgundy wine. After dinner, Sfingi and Zeppeli dressed up on white doilies, espresso served in doll-sized cups, and Mario Lanza and Sergio Bruni singing in our stereo. Or the day Mario Abate signed albums in our living room, his Neapolitan tenor pouring through the house. My mother's hair piled on her head like a queen as she served course after course, barely sitting to take a bite. My sisters and I, her blue-eyed charges, helping to clear dishes, entertain guests. My father at the head in pastry-stained uniform, regaling everyone with stories. If I close my eyes, I am there, can see the light coming in the window like another guest, can taste the love and song, the thrill of being young. If I close my eyes, I see those Sundays were another Mass, another Eucharist, a glimpse of the banquet to come. Thank you.
Wonderful, Maria. Thank you. Really recreated that. Another honorable mention is Mary Meltz Holloway from St. Paul, Minnesota, how to be killed by a broken taillight.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. It's an honor to be among you. Your poems are incredible. This poem was written in reaction to the shooting death of Philando Castile in July 2016. And sadly, here in Minnesota, we are again reeling from another senseless death. And so I send this poem out to the families and loved ones of all those people. How to be killed by a broken taillight. Step 1, be a Black man in America. Step 2, be a Black man in America driving a car. Be a Black man in America driving a car with your girlfriend beside you and a 4-year-old child in the back, probably safe in a car seat because that's the law, you know. Be a Black man in America driving a car with 2 others, heading home from a haircut and grocery shopping. And oh, did I forget to mention, let it be night. Be a Black man in America driving a car at night with a broken taillight. Maybe you know it's broken, maybe you don't. Nevertheless, the light is broken. You're not as safe as you should be. You might need a little protection. Be a Black man in America driving a car at night with a broken taillight, who also happens to carry a concealed weapon with a permit to do so, because that's legal and it's your right. And it's night and you're a Black man in America. How do you die from a broken taillight? Be a Black man in America driving a car with a broken light at night and get stopped by a cop who has the right because his job is to serve and protect. He only wants you safe, your shining knight, on the darkened streets of Falcon Heights. Now be sure, young Black man in America, to tell the cop in the traffic stop, be sure to reveal that you carry and conceal your own protection. You're permitted to do so. It's best not to lie. Be sure to comply as your mother has taught you with every request of law enforcement. He is the law, you know. His reach is longer than yours. Already his long arm rests on the standard police issue revolver, riding on his hip, ready to unclip the leather holster in case you try to bolster any efforts at your own protection by reaching for something other than the license to drive the car with the broken taillight at night. Your raised hands lower, reaching for the wallet. His hands raise, extended by the bullets. Something clicks in his brain, triggers his finger. 4 shots ring out. Bam, 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 bam. Blood soaks your shirt. You moan, and maybe in those next moments you wonder, how does this happen? How do I die over a broken taillight? I was just driving my car on a Wednesday night in Falcon Heights on my way home. I did everything right. If you're a Black man in America driving a car at night, know this: you must be brave, because you're not really all that free. You can't really expect with certainty to drive a car at night with a broken taillight and see those lights in your rear view mirror and know that you will see the light of our morning for a Black man in America.
Very powerful. Thank you. Our next honorable mention poet is Antoinette Libro, Sea Isle City, New Jersey, Depression Glassware. Antoinette Libro, Tony? Not here? No, I guess not. Okay. Greg Molia, Huntington, New York. Mrs. Dietrich made me blush. Greg? I'm missing people. Now I know what happens when I forget to sign it. Anyway, Greg is not here. Is that right? Can you hear me? Okay. Our next writer is Lisa Cole Nicolau, Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Letter to my future granddaughter.
Hello, Maria. Hello, everyone. Thank you.
I knew I'd seen you before.
Oh, well, I have to catch my breath after Mary's poem. Oh, I'm sorry that Greg isn't here. I don't get to hear his work and recover. So I'm just going to take a deep breath. Letter to my future granddaughter, Part 1, 1918. At 17, I sailed to New York, leaving my beloved home of Lares, a village in the Green Mountains of Puerto Rico, my 2 sisters, and my cousin Carmen, who 2 summers before disturbed a nest of wasps, though I told her again and again to leave it alone. But Carmen was defiant and difficult, and I the only one who could tame her. On the ship, I worried and wondered what would be waiting for me in New York, how cousin Carmen could survive without me. I felt the pang again from the welts on my skin, remembered how the wasps formed a wavy wall as they enveloped us, how I covered Carmen's body with mine to save her sweet skin. A priest came, and in my fevered dreams, I remember the last rites I received, my cousin crying, my mother spooning broth from a doll's spoon into my open mouth. With fear in me extinguished, I offered to sail to the city, an English dictionary in my bag, a promise of a job with a friend's family, caring for 3 children, the hope to earn enough money to keep the family farm and return to the green hills of Lares. I sailed into the harbor in the fall of 1918, arriving with the Spanish flu. Part 2, 2020. Given the fact that the world is melting and an invisible virus is killing by the thousands, and my daughters in their childbearing years are back at home, living in their childhood bedrooms, you may never be a part of this world. But if by some miracle you are born, here are some things to remember. Your great-great-grandmother survived the Spanish flu. A priest came to give her last. A priest came to give.
Sorry, honey.
That's okay. Your great-great-grandmother survived the Spanish flu. A priest came to give her last rites twice. The first, when she received hundreds of wasp bites. She used to tell me that story when I was a little girl and sing to me in her thick accent. Her little bedroom, my safe haven, where I felt enveloped in the cocoon of her love. She struggled with asthma, endured a cruel mother-in-law and a silent husband, suffered from migraines. But she just kept living, pushing through difficult days, rushing to her galley kitchen to find a way to nourish us. When the world shut down in 2020, I put on an apron and started to talk to my grandmother. I remembered her cooking tricks, saved the bones and scraps for broth, looked out the kitchen window and searched for a hopeful sign. These long and difficult months, we waited for the disgraceful man to leave the White House. We waited for a vaccine to save us. The four of us sat in our little den like a small boat against a big storm, hoping we would reach solid ground. I wondered if there was even a possibility that you would someday enter our world, given the climate issues and the political strife, and your possible mother and aunt living as exiles from their young lives. And all the while I thought of my grandmother, what she had endured, what she had survived, remembered how she would wait for us to arrive, how she would carefully crack the eggs and make us omelets, those yellow orbs showing us how she was able to make something whole from something broken. May you inherit a kernel of her courage. May you carry her kindness in your bones. Thank you.
Beautiful. I'm telling you, one poem more beautiful than the other. Okay, the next honorable mention is Christine Baldino O'Hanlon from New York, New York. The Truth About Skating.
Hi, Maria. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Can hear
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you for doing this and for getting all these wonderful poets together. This is an incredible, wonderful reading. So, okay, the truth about skating. I got my first pair of roller skates, metal ones that grip the sides of my shoes, state of the art, 1956. I had a skate key to adjust the width and length and leather straps that went around my ankles. I took off. We lived in a neighborhood with lots of asphalt, smooth sailing for me, careening down hills, around curves. Stopping was harder than starting. Sometimes I forgot I was wearing skates. One day I wore them, climbing a metal staircase inside an apartment building. I disturbed an old biddy who reported me to the neighborhood rent-a-cops. When they caught up with me, I gave them a fake name and address and skated free.
Did you ever think to do that? Okay, our next honorable mention poet is Jason Craig Poole from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. When Jenny came to the house. I think I might have read the wrong title for you.
That's right. That's correct. That's right. Hi,
okay.
Maria.
Hi, honey.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. When Jenny came to the house, Grandma didn't get up from the couch when I brought my girlfriend to meet her, probably because her legs were sore, or maybe she was just tired from not sleeping much. Sitting there in the corner of the couch, she looked like a queen on a throne made of overstuffed, warped cushions wrapped in massive flowers. Jenny and I stood side by side, Sweaty palm pressed to sweaty palm, and I didn't think it was strange that she was taller than me, because in middle school, girls were often a bit taller than the boys, especially when they were 2 grades ahead. Grandma was sweet and said something like, "Nice to meet you, honey," and Jenny bent down to give Grandma a hug. The house smelled like an entire year's dinners. I sniffed my shirt to make sure my new deodorant stick was still working. I wanted to be a man, a grown-up, and introduce my new girlfriend to my grandmother. But Grandma still saw me as a boy, her angel boy, and she pulled at my arm so I'd fall into the couch beside her, and she gestured for Jenny to sit in my dad's recliner. She held my right hand in both of hers and kneaded it, rolled the knuckle bones back and forth, and told Jenny that we sat like this at night and talked about the day's events, how things went at school, what she watched on TV. And then she said, "He just started wearing aftershave last week. How long have the two of you been an item anyway?" And then she stopped talking and she looked at Jenny. And my face burned and I stopped breathing and I wanted to die, but Jenny just lowered her eyes and giggled and said something like, "I think he smells super great." And right then I knew everything would be okay because I had my grandma at my side and my new girlfriend was smiling at me and spring was already turning into summer. Thanks.
Jameson, I love you. Your spirit comes out in that poem. Next honorable mention is Jennifer Poteet from Montclair, New Jersey. And the title of the poem is 139 Sunrise Terrace.
Hi, Maria. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be part of this. I always am. Here's 139 Sunrise Terrace. 139 Sunrise Terrace sounded pretty, nestled in the hamlet of Cedar Grove, New Jersey, between Verona and Little Falls. Our street was just long. There weren't any groves. Most of the houses built in the 50s were asbestos sided. Ours was a Cape Cod, the color of Dijon mustard. At 11, I was writing to more than a dozen pen pals all over the country, some from places that also had beautiful names like Belle Meade, Kentucky, and Paradise Valley, Arizona. One girl lived on Marigold Way, somewhere in the South. I liked to loop the zeros of my zip code 07009 and seal each envelope with an oval avocado-colored sticker before putting on the 8-cent postage stamp. I sent letters about all I planned to do with boys to these girls I had never met, strangers chosen because their addresses appeared in a column of Tiger Beat magazine next to photos of David Cassidy, whom I wanted to kiss. I started to peck out stories and poems in the rooms where my parents argued. The G on their old Royal typewriter would always stick.
Wonderful, honey. Beautiful poem. Our next honorable mention is Lois Rosen from Salem, Oregon, self-portrait with cropped hair.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
I'm very thankful to be here and with all of you. I feel very lucky. Self-portrait with cropped hair. Dressed in a man's baggy gray suit, Frida Kahlo's dark unibrow defies separation. Overlong fingers lay limp on her thighs. One hand barely holds onto the scissors. A hank of black hair hangs. Strands cover the ground like spiders. Haircut left short as a boy's. I want to hide the scissors before she hurts herself, gather the hair and make her a pillow. The sign beside the painting says, Frida Kahlo painted self-portrait with cropped hair
shortly after she divorced her unfaithful husband, the artist Diego Rivera. As a painter of many self-portraits, she had often shown herself in a Mexican woman's traditional dresses and flowing hair. Into the work, she has written the lyrics in Spanish of a Mexican song. Look, if I loved you, it was because of your hair. Now that you are without hair, I don't love you anymore. Nonsense. Why punish herself for him? Maybe she wears a suit, so something of his still touches her. At home, I often wear Dad's flannel shirt and tuck a hanky that was his in my pocket. In a small leather sketchbook, his last gift to me, I copy the painting as well as I can. Frida stiff as a wooden chair, man's suit, strewn pieces of hair, earring dangling from one ear, porcelain doll hands. On a new page, I decide to draw a picture Frida inspires. What song will I put across the top? Are you lonesome tonight? Only the lonely? I'm sorry. No, not right. Cry me a river. Yes. I draw notes on a staff and write, we cried a river over you, Mom and I, rigid, scraggly haired, tilt back on kitchen chairs, her arm angling like a robot's, cigarette in her mouth, smoke sneaking around our heads, crushed hankies sinking in an ocean. Would Dad think I'm being disrespectful? I name the sketch Portrait with Crushed Hankies.
Wonderful, honey. Beautiful poem. Beautiful. Okay, our next honorable mention is Pamela Wax, and she's from North Adams, Massachusetts. And I'm not descended from Stoics like Jackie O. I am not descended from Stoics like Jackie O. Pamela Wax, are you
Great.
here?
Thank you. I am delighted
good.
to be here. I am not descended from Stoics like Jackie O. After JFK's boyish grin was wiped from that convertible in Dealey Plaza, my father came home early from his store, leaving the mops and hammers to fend for themselves so he could hug my mother, me, and my sister. I registered the grief of two adults in front of a Zenith console as they tiptoed across the gravel in Walter Cronkite's voice, rocking my sister and cooing platitudes that assured no one of safety. I was 3, but remember their naked display as shocking as if they were making love right there on the tufted rug of our living room. When I was 11, my grandfather died on my birthday, binding me to him in ironic perpetuity. My father, aged 51, stood red-faced in the funeral home's foyer, his hands fisted, and hit his head rhythmically against its floral blue wallpaper, bawling for his father, a spectacle as open as the casket where my grandfather lay. For my bat mitzvah 2 years later, my maternal grandmother begged me for a death more attractive than the diapers and wheelchairs that had welcomed her to the Jewish home. I knew then from whom I was descended, stock of Eastern European Jews, who ever turned their prayers toward a wailing wall that echoed back at them, wailing, wailing, because the danger and despair are everywhere and eternal. And what else did they know to do?
Wonderful, honey. Such beautiful poems today, such moving poems. Our next honorable mention is Bill Wonder, Langhorne, Pennsylvania, what the coronavirus taught me. Bill?
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you
Good.
are.
Thanks, Maria, for all you do for poets and poetry. What the
Thank you.
coronavirus taught me, that the stars know nothing of social distancing and are still pinned to their assigned places. That the moon, made heavy by sadnesses, still rises. And Venus, a diva, still glimmers low in her horizon. That you only have to look at the crocus, the daffodil, to draw strength from their courage. That you must first listen to the wood thrush, the nightingale, if you wish to sing. Thank you.
Wonderful, Bill. Lovely poem. Our next honorable mention is Sharida Yoder from North Haledon, New Jersey, and her poem is called Falling. Sharida?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Maria, and thank you to all the poets whose work I've enjoyed so much listening to today. My poem is about marriage, falling. When my husband falls, it is not funny, not like a pratfall, whatever that is. It is not litigious either. No one to sue but himself. No expected windfall of money. He loses his balance and falls like a tree, heavy, massive, rooted to the floor, the ground trembling. I will him up, coach, nurse, pleader. I brace myself against the chair I bring so he can lean on it to pull himself up, while I also shout, up, pull, hold on, and grab at him. And he says, I can't. My legs are too weak. It is not pretty. It is not loving, though love is there.
Wait, we lost you, honey.
It is labor and hefting and unarticulated prayer. It is losing the tenderness of voices that were soft. Afterwards, relief is short from fear of the next time, from the pain of the fall. I inspect his body, rub on antiseptic to try to heal the bruise and clean the split skin. But the mending of the marriage is harder. We have seen us vulnerable, scared, shouting at each other and at gravity, which never stops pulling us down.
Sharida, that was wonderful. Thank you very much. It makes me feel better about my own feelings. I will mention Mariano Zaro, Santa Monica, California, and the poem is called Brother.
Hi, Maria. Thank you very much for all you do for poetry. It is great to be here today with all of you. The title of the poem is Brother. Who is this boy? I ask my mother. I am pointing to a black and white picture framed on a bookshelf. He is your brother, she says. The toddler is standing next to a stroller, wears a small hat. It's a summer day. This is not the first time I have seen the picture. This is the first time we talk about it. I am 6 years old. Where is he now, I ask. He is dead, my mother says. What happens when you die, I ask. Where do you go? Nobody knows, she says. Everything is the same. Everything is not the same. How did he die, I ask. Fever, dehydration, she says. What is dehydration, I ask. He died of thirst, she says. He was born April 27th, 1960. He died July 18th, 1961. It was a Tuesday. I was born April 15th, I say. Yes, April 15th, 1963. It was a Monday, she says. All my children came to me, all of them but you, my mother says. I looked for you. I had to look for you because I was old, they said. Where was I asked. You were inside your father, she says. Did my brother have toys, I ask. Yes, she says. But I told your aunts to take everything away. The toys, his shoes, all his clothing. You share the same crib though, but not the clothing. I couldn't do that to you. Was he better than I am, mother, I ask. She touches my hair. He was strong, she says. He brought you here. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, honey. What a bunch of great poems. Oh, I'm happy to be here. And now we're going to go to our editor's choice. And the first poet is Tom Driscoll from Framingham, Massachusetts, Notes on the Demolition. Tom? Is Tom there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, where?
Hello?
Oh, okay. I see you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Notes on Demolition for Denise. The grinning advice got from a mason friend of mine I told of our plans was that in demolishing a chimney, one should start at the top and work their way down. With hammer strikes at the masonry, the old mortar will crumble, fall away, pry the brick loose, one, then the next, then the next. He'd shown me the proper use of brick tongs as well, how to carry enough each load for the tool to serve its purpose. The weight, the work, strangely pleasing the first few trips down narrow stairs, 2 floors to the basement where I staged out debris. Then I notice one brick fall into the shaft I've opened, and I'm the clever one to realize it's one less brick for me to carry. And soon I'm thrilled at the easy way whole courses hammer loose and drop into the deep stir of dust and dark. Such an elegant process, as if the chimney's stack effect reversed itself after 100 years, like smoke rendering back unto flame. The brick will be waiting at the base of the shaft and the cellar to be sorted and stacked for hauling away. This I tell myself, so pleased with the ingenuity. Bounding down the stair to inspect, I stop, stare, dumbstruck. We'd set up camp in the first floor living room, nomadic urban pioneers, our bed and a television set, a microwave oven, the crib, though most nights our son slept between us. We'd lived like this a while, always the one room habitable while we tore apart the next. Now I am stunned and stopped. My gaze—
I don't know what happened. We're losing your sound.
I'm sorry? Hello? I'm sorry, did
We
something—
lost your sound. I don't know why. Now I hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead, keep going.
Now I am stunned. And I'm sorry, I got, where was I? We lived like this a while, always the one room habitable while we tore apart the next. Now I am stunned and stopped, my gaze fixed upon the scene of this, our ragged domesticity, rendered in sudden, seamless black, an eerie disreflection of light. Dust fine as powder, black as coal, blacker. I thought the brick would fall clear. Instead, one caught, and as more bricks fell, the shaft and the plaster surrounding broke, breached, billowed black over it all. All. Beautiful, I tell you. Beautiful black snowscape. Capture of light, light claimed, subsumed into an anthracitic jewel surfacing of every form. The blinded clock, black. The chair, black. The trunk we use as a table, the crib, black, black. I know I must clean this all before you return. The refugee with our son and all our worries in tow, all that you carry, even our daughter not yet born. And I know I must leave no telling traces, and that I'll only tell you carefully later what I see now, years later, that this secretly, for me, deepened every color since. Thank you.
Wonderful. Our next poet is James D. Gwynn from Clifton, New Jersey, and his poem is called A Summer Thing.
Hi. Thank you, Maria.
Hi, Jim.
Hi. Thanks
there you
also
are.
to Smita and to Susan for helping
Something's
to put
wrong.
this together. A summer thing.
No,
Around me, hello? What's going on?
Jim.
Yeah. Am I unmuted?
No, something's wrong, Jim. Could you put your picture on and put your camera on and just make sure that
Can you hear me now?
your sound is on right, because there's all
Yes,
this
it is.
noise.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maria, I think I can
I can see him, I can hear him.
Okay.
I can see and hear him perfectly.
Hi.
I can
Okay,
see and
good.
hear
Go ahead.
too.
All set?
Everybody else shut off your sound so that we can hear him.
Everybody good? Everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Maria. And thank you also to Smita and to Susan for helping to put this together. My poem is called A Summer Thing. Around me, I hear a rush of air, feel leaves spluttering from maples and oaks. I shudder to accept that this year is so advanced and think back to July and August when I was slicing tomatoes and slathering on at least a half inch of mayonnaise, slapping them between halves of wheat bread. Voila, my favorite sandwich. I thought back on the summer garden bounty of beefsteaks, Jersey boys, brandy wines, along with the heirlooms, Jubilee, Rebellion, Juliet's. In contrast, what is now in the kitchen table basket is slim pickings for this time of year. Whatever hothouse variety that Misfits, our home delivery produce service, had recently dropped off at our door, older, less plump, flesh sagging. I'll have to bring out a serrated knife, something sharper to carefully cut through the skin, yet knowing I will still end up less than satisfied. Maybe it's a summer thing. Maybe memories of the toil and sweat I spent years before when I worked in the fields for the farmer who sent most of his crops to the Heinz plant in town. All morning following the picker, hoisting basket after basket onto the flatbed that the tractor pulled through the furrows, then helping to secure the load and barely wiping away the sweat before the next trailer was driven onto the field. Finally, noon, and retreating to my spot under the tall trees and hefting a couple plump giants fresh off the vine and digging out a shaker of salt from my pants pocket and washing this glorious lunch down, a lukewarm orange knee-high sprouting in my hand. I would put a bag full of beauties aside and at day's end hold them in the crook of my arm as I biked home, give them to my grandmother who would put them in the icebox to get cold. Supper time, she would lay out pork chops with mashed and gravy and sliced tomatoes, which provided, she said, color contrast on the plates. She would add a dash of sugar to bring out their sweetness. I don't know why you put salt on them, she would say. They need sugar because they're a fruit. I opened my mouth to respond, but closed it fast before she accused me of trying to catch flies. I'd eat the meat and potatoes first because to me, sugar signaled that tomatoes were a dessert, and desserts you always saved to eat last. I'd cut the rounds into quarters and savor them as much as I would any of her pies, the cherry, the apple, or peach, which, long after summer's end, she would provide, crafted from the quartz she stacked in our root cellar. And oh yeah, rhubarb, which she taught me how to pick and cut from where it grew along the gully that caught the runoff on the north side of the property line. She was always adding to her dozens of jars the vast stock of cherries and blueberries, the not so tart raspberries in August, and strawberries at the front end of summer. When my wife says she'll make me a sandwich because I'm standing there and staring at the tomatoes like a loon, I say, okay. She asks if I want the bread plain or toasted, and if I want to choose the tomato. So I root around in the basket, select the plumpest, firmest one, and say, slice this one up, please, but no bread. Just lay it on a plate and add a dash of sugar. She gives me that arched eyebrow look, and I simply say, it's a summer thing.
Wonderful, Jim. Beautiful poem. Our next editor's choice is Elizabeth Harahy. Oh, and I hope I say this correctly. Oconomowoc, I hope that's right, Wisconsin. And the poem is called The Great Escape.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to read amongst such wonderful poets. The Great Escape. When I was 10, the savory smell of sizzling bacon woke me like clockwork each 4 a.m. and lured me downstairs to my dad cooking breakfast for 2. After he returned from working the night shift at the Boston Globe and printing the morning news. We ate side by side on the sofa and watched TV, and sometimes we were lucky enough to find one of our favorite car chase movies was on, like The French Connection or Blazing Magnum, The Getaway, or if we were really lucky, Bullet. Steve McQueen was my idol with his Highland Green Ford Mustang GT, ability to do his own stunts and shake any trouble that came his way, be it bad guys with guns or bad guys with guns in their own fast cars. My dad never sent me back to bed, and I'd stay after the movie ended to watch him as he dozed. Head back, hands folded neatly in his lap, and notice the ink under his nails, the lead dust from the typeset still on his t-shirt and biceps. I liked to picture him driving the pinstriped Ford Torino he owned before I was born, pretend he didn't have to work 2 jobs, imagine him drinking a beer with Steve McQueen before challenging McQueen to a drag race, me riding shotgun. I couldn't have imagined a few years later, Steve McQueen would be diagnosed with cancer, that he would race to Mexico, desperate to prolong his life with unconventional treatments, only to get nowhere. Decades later, I wake at 4 a.m. and think of those mornings with my dad when we lived in that apartment in the row house, back before computers took over his job at the paper, and we raced to Florida in pursuit of a better life, only to go bankrupt. Those mornings when it was still dark outside and the rest of the family lay asleep in their beds while we watched movies together, both of us still believing there was nothing a fast car couldn't solve. Thank you.
Wonderful, honey. Beautiful poem. The next poet, editor's choice, is Susan Herring, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Little Bird Gone.
I feel like I missed some kind of geographic requirement on this coming from New Mexico here. I wrote this poem the day after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, when I read in one of the many tributes to her that her husband called her Little Bird. Little bird gone. The birds are falling from the sky. Today, the kids next door brought me 3 more, each one laid out with such tenderness on linens their mom doesn't yet know are missing from her towel drawer. The graveyard the kids and I dug in my backyard is full of these shoeboxes now. The birds keep on falling from empty skies. RBG died last night. She let go. Rest in power, love. You did good. 3 more birds thudded to the earth. What if we caught them? What if the children and I stood guard in the street with our butterfly nets and caught them as they come crashing from the sky like those black shadows we remember from the towers? Who can we save? Who is God flinging from his heavens? I will do my best to catch you and even you. I will make a stronger net and I will catch you if I can. Thank you, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and thank all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Josh Humphrey from Kearney, New Jersey, Chicken Kiev. Josh. Is Josh here?
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Hi, Josh. Okay.
Sorry, a lot of difficulties today, but I'm going to get through this. So it's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to, I'm reading this poem from my mother, and she always wanted to be part of this, but she never got there, but I kind of based this on something she wrote. So it's called Chicken Kiev. My parents were both tellers in a bank. That's where they met. My mother was the day and my father was the night. Their numbers were 7 and 11, lucky ones by any standard. They met with steak sandwiches, but fell in love with Chicken Kiev. Betty Matusik's party, 1972. It was her mother's recipe. My parents had never tasted it before. They ate it in the Ford, beating it home. My father at the wheel, my mother watching for police cars, working it together like the eggs and the breadcrumbs. Delicious, and so remembered always, like that perfect night and the ones after. Pavement on a new road, warm hum of speed, safety of the heater in the cold where it belongs. My parents would stay married for 27 years and then change back to strangers. I used to think that it could not have been love, but I know love now. They made a case for it. They made a case for each other for as long as they could, like Mrs. Matusik's chicken and butter. That bank made a case for my mother for 30 years. Life made a case for her heart for 65. All of it a rare time when what was given aligned with what was needed. The endings hardly matter. For a time, they were the world, the bedroom upstairs at the heart of the house. For a time, they were Chicken Kiev on the way home. Thank you.
Wonderful, Josh. Beautiful poem. Diane Corey from Cresskill, New Jersey, The Dream She Remembers. Diane, are you there? Diane? Maybe not. Okay, Gloria Murray, Deer Park, New York, and her poem is called Hands. Gloria Murray. There? I should be missing some people. No? Okay. Ilari Pass, Greensboro, North Carolina. My mother, I love this title. My mother's sporting her afro at Burger King for my birthday. Ilari.
Hi, can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
The title's just great.
Oh, thank you so much. My birthday just passed about a week ago, and my mom is still here. So,
Hello.
Wait, who's
sorry,
talking?
Maria? It's Gloria.
Wait, it's you'll have to wait until the end, Gloria. We're right in the middle of the other person's poem, so just wait a minute, okay? Let me let Ilaria read.
Okay, here we go. My mother sporting her afro at Burger King for my birthday. 1976. It's my father's favorite photograph. My mother sits like a queen, blushing. She was embarrassed, he says, but he loved her halo of splendor and coaxed her to show off. The photograph is fading, bearing the orange and moss hues of an out-of-date Polaroid, but I can still see the bright sky blue floral pattern all over her blouse. My mother's brown eyes stare meekly up at the camera, freckles sprinkled just under her eyes, dimples formed in the upper part of her cheeks, lending character to her smooth features. She was, after all, pregnant with her fourth, and never as comfortable showing her shapely figure as my father was comfortable talking about Penthouse. Her dark ginger hair hedges over her shoulders, framing a soft chiseled jawline and slender fair neck. She puts her right hand out to hold my left hand, ready to assemble the crown. It lays flat. Sitting in her lap, knees hidden from the table, my father lifts the camera, telling us to look up. Thank you.
That's a wonderful memento poem. Great. All right, now Gloria, we'll come back to you. Gloria Murray, Deer Park, New York. Her poem is Hands. Gloria, where did you go now? Wasn't she just here?
Can you hear me now? Oh, this is
Where
ridiculous.
are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Okay.
she has-
Home.
Can you hear me now? Can you
Yes,
see me?
yes.
All right,
yes.
I'm sorry. I'm not on my own computer. That's the problem.
That's all right. Go ahead, Gloria.
Okay, I apologize for the interruption. Hands. Once they were small in mittens, clasped by my mother's long, slender piano ones. Hands that with a bristle brush smeared faces of pain and confusion in colors dark and bleeding across white canvas. Scrawled poems in a spiral notebook on the subway ride home from jobs that always let me go. At 17, the tips of those pink polished nails traced the beauty of your face before the kiss that bound me to you. Hands that held the intimate of you, cradled my baby so sweetly, yet shaking because a life depended on their steadiness and strength. That scrubbed a floor never as clean as my mother's, sprinkled without measuring spices into muffins and delicacies, hearty meatloafs. These hands that one day wanted to take a knife and stab the life out of you or me, but knew we were destined to be in and out of touching. These hands, see them now, tiny snakes of blue veins, mushroom nodes sprouting around knuckles, dropping pills, silverware, sewing needles, hands that cannot stop from trembling, half hidden in cut off gloves, losing their hold on everything.
Wonderful, Gloria. Thank you very much. Our next editor's choice is Allison St. Paul from Stockbridge, Georgia, and her poem is called Black Girl Magic.
So whatever.
Is she
Hi,
here?
everyone.
Hi, dear.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. I just wanted to start off by just congratulating everyone. My poem, Black Girl Magic. The way the sunlight ricochets off of her skin, the way she emanates a sense of beauty that comes from deep within, the way her entire body glistens, even in the dark, the way her eyes twinkle where each one resembles a spark, the way her plump and luscious lips seem perched on her face, the way that all of her curves and her entire body are ready for a warm embrace, the way she carries her hair because it is her crown, as she steps into the world, opens up her mouth and lets her voice resound. This, I say, is
Prisoners
Black Girl Magic.
Prisoners of War.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, wait a second. The next reader is Wanda Praisner from Bedminster, New Jersey, Prisoners of War. No, Wanda, you have to turn on the sound.
Is that better?
Yes.
Does that work? Okay, good. Prisoners of War. The world's at war again. This time the enemy's unseen, coronavirus. Despite geographies, we're all behind doors, no end in sight. As a child in the early 40s, the Great Depression, World War II, rheumatic fever confined me to a tiny upstairs back bedroom. My bed, a cot. I couldn't leave. A foreign time of no school, lessons, teachers, no books. I devoured the Sears catalog, traced stocking ads. I hugged the doll my German grandmother sent, a doll with real hair. No soda, no gas. We did without and went nowhere. Yet outside my small window, spring came. The catbird returned. I remember Miss Ward in her old Model T, coming to our house each week to give me piano lessons. The war over, everything up and going once more. The lingering scent of lavender from the lace handkerchief on her wrist. I learned to play Sigmund Romberg's Auf Wiedersehen, music like birdsong filling the air everywhere. Thank you.
Beautiful, Wanda. Our next editor's choice is Maud Caroline Pitch, Total Burrow, and it's called I'm Shrinking.
Oh, so many wonderful poems. I'm really enjoying this.
Thank you, Maud.
I'm shrinking. It first came to my attention while flipping through photographs when in a family group shot, I seemed to be shorter than expected. My tallest adult height of 5'1" has distinguished me as the shortest member of my family. Everyone has passed me up, even my youngest daughter, who at maturity succeeded in passing me by a smidgen as I began to shrink. Oh, she gladly celebrated that victorious quarter inch. Now, all of my grandchildren have passed me up, except the youngest, who will achieve her goal any day. Passing up grandma has become a rite of passage. My feet no longer touch the floor when I'm sitting at a table, and more I'm requiring cushions to give me a boost. When I'm in the supermarket, if I can't find a tall fellow to reach the yogurt on the top shelf, I resort to climbing. Last week, I went through the kitchen cabinets, moving things I use often to lower shelves, so I won't have to use the step stool quite so often because it's no longer sufficient to stand on tiptoes and hyper stretch to fetch a cereal box or bowl. I blame my height or lack thereof on heredity. Mother was only 4'10", and I blame it on osteoporosis and age, and maybe I didn't drink enough milk as a child or eat enough broccoli. Guess I should have done more stretching exercises. I've certainly learned how important an inch is. At latest measure, the tallest I can rise to is a mere 4'10", like mother. I'm shrinking. Help. I'm afraid I'm going to disappear.
Maud, I know just what you mean. Wonderful. Our next editor's choice is Ellen Joyce Rabinowitz from Nyack, New York. After we're gone is something of our stride left.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria, and the whole staff. I really love and appreciate all the poetry. Amazing poetry day. Thank you.
Thank you.
After we're gone is something of our stride left. My sister's stride was a wondrous thing, originally honed to keep up with our 6'inch father, who we rarely saw when he worked nights and who became our idol, movie star, and hero when he actually appeared to accompany us on exciting journeys down the street. Amy would run, bounce, skip, and run to keep up with his loping walk, and developed, in her New York way, one of those long, purposeful walk styles that kept muggers and moochers at bay. Remembering Amy in that hot and florid sun in Tijuana, going for another procedure recommended by the scamming last chance hospice clinic that promised hope when there was none. I've lost my stride, she muttered, too weak then to scream, I have lost my New York stride, I can hardly walk. The light was unfamiliar and harsh. Those streets lined, littered. Language drifted around us like unwanted letters. Pigeons swooped. Amy walked brokenly, her legs like pelican sticks, carefully stepping as if on broken glass. We didn't know then that the cancer had migrated, gone to her bones. I only knew that my beautiful 38-year-old sister had lost her stride and soon would lose her life. Does Amy haunt Payson Avenue where she walked and ran and loved her husband? Is she walking around the defunct factories where she gave out posters for workers' rights? Is she striding around 34th and Madison, where she listlessly toiled at the horrid S Brothers, designing handbags and cut-rate plastics? She walks in my bones and in my stride as I walk New York City streets where we grew up, still brightly mic'd and tenement style through attempts at gentrification. Large trees now sprout on once barren sidewalks. Many ghosts exist here. So many footsteps have fallen. So many strides. The air is thick with them.
Oh, Ellen, that was beautiful. Thank you. Our next reader is Robert A. Rosenblum from Bound Brook, New Jersey, Braverman's son. Bob Rosenblum, are you there? Bob? Have I lost him? I thought I saw him before. Well, maybe not. Okay, well, I guess he's not there. Donna Spector from Warwick, New York, Above the Night City. Donna Spector? No? Okay. And our last reader is Carol Stone from Verona, New Jersey, the boy who nicknamed me Honey. Carol, are you there? lost her. Okay, I just want to thank everybody for a wonderful reading. I can't imagine how we could have gathered together any stronger poems than these. Many times I found myself crying and just being so moved by the poems, or laughing because of a poem that was lighter. But my response was so visceral to these poems, and I just want to thank you for writing them, and I'm going to be very proud to see them in the following issue of PLR. There's a whole section at the end which will be the Allen Ginsberg poems and the Editor's Choice poems. Thank you for being such wonderful writers. Thank you for giving me hope in a time when hope is so difficult to come by. Let's give each other a round of applause, okay?
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
Thanks, Maria. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everyone.
Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all the poets.
Thanks, everyone.
Let me thank all the poets, but also let me thank Smita Desai, my secretary, who really arranges the technical parts of this, and Susan Balick, who took care of the closed captioning and getting the closed captioning arranged. All these things are never done by one person. You need good people around you to have things work, and they really worked. And you need good poets like you guys to make me very happy. So I'm glad to have heard you work. I'm glad to have met some of you for the first time. I hope to see you in person soon. And let's give everybody another round of applause. And thanks for being wonderful poets.
Maria.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great day.
Bye.
Thank you so
much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
It really was.
Made me very happy, I have to say.
Thank you.
As long as I have poetry, I'll keep going.
And
It's not to me, but if I have a choice, as long as I have poetry, I'll keep going.
Yeah. I'm glad this was able to happen.
Yeah.
With everything
Yeah.
that we've all been going through. So thank you.
It was
Right.
a joy, really. Just
It was-
absolutely.
It was wonderful, wasn't it? Is it just me? I'm
No,
thrilled and
No, it
happy.
was really a great reading.
really great.
Really, the poems were extraordinary, and it really mattered. So
I think it certainly
I
mattered.
agree.
No, I've
Yeah.
been, I started this contest probably 35 years ago. And at first it wasn't called Allen Ginsberg. Then it was started actually in 1980. But then I think about 1985, we changed it to Allen Ginsberg Awards. And every year I love it. But some years a little more uneven. You know, every once in a while, a poem that's chosen by the judges doesn't quite work when the person reads it. That was not the case today. I felt really thrilled by every single poem. Everyone worked. Everyone was great. Thank you very much. You made my weekend, I have to say. Thanks for being here.
thank you, Maria. Thank you.
And,
Lisa.
I also want to say, I think it was a great idea to do the poetry by Zoom and the viewers by YouTube, because I was on an arts call that got what's called bombed last week, where all the artists waiting to present couldn't speak because somebody had gotten on. And the way you arranged it was just so safe and pretty much flawless. So I do so appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. And please go to our poetry YouTube channel, because all the readings, we're gradually uploading all the readings from the last 40 years, including these. So if you want to hear some great poetry, go on there, because really and so this one will be up on the YouTube channel as well. Anyway, Bye, guys, and have a
Bye.
wonderful rest of the day.
To Maria, thank
Bye.
you.
Yeah.
Bye, Sunita, thank you.
Bye, bye, Marian.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, you too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, dear. Smina, tell me what happened when we were losing them. What happened?
Nothing. What do you mean, what happened?
Well, what happened? We were like, the person would be speaking and there'd be this clunking noise and they would disappear. I don't know what was going on. I didn't know what to do to fix it.
Yeah, it does automatic, Maria. We can't do anything about it.
Well, what does
We
it? I don't remember this happening before.